Secunda Secundae question 48, St. Thomas lists the parts of prudence, as he calls them. In fact, his analysis there applies to all the cardinal virtues. There's a very complex structure of virtue, because the various strengths of mind and character that we have, or should have, need various supporting strengths. They unfold in various ways, and so on. That matches the complexity of the human psyche and human life. So one way of analysing prudence into parts is to speak of what Thomas calls the subjective parts. That really is to look at the species of prudence. So the big class of animal contains many species of animals like cats and dogs and spiders and so on. And prudence, as a kind of class of strengths of mind, contains several species of prudence. The obvious and basic kind is the personal prudence, whereby I have the skill to run my own life well. But there are other species of prudence, like domestic prudence. One thinks of the lady who runs a large medieval household, or perhaps the abbot and bursar and cellarer running a medieval monastery. To run, to govern, to animate that kind of community, you need tactful people skills, something a bit more than you need just to run your own personal life. And we need to bear in mind for each species of prudence that you can't have prudence without justice, courage, and temperance. You aren't running your household well if you bully the servants, or don't challenge the bad behaviour of your children that needs to be corrected because you're afraid to do so. You have to be fair. And this is one of the kinds of prudence that has to be learnt. Perhaps the lady of the household has learnt it from her mother. And in different social times, we still need, in many settings, a domestic kind of prudence. There's also the military prudence of running an army well, or nowadays a navy or an air force. And this requires a different kind of people skills, and it requires a knowledge of military tactics from experience and from past generals and admirals and so on. And we still need to bear in mind that you can't in fact be running an army well if you don't have justice, courage, and temperance. Courage is fairly obvious, but war crimes, in fact, will spoil a victory and make it hollow, and so will cruelty towards prisoners of war and so on. Then an especially noble kind of prudence is governing or legislative prudence. Running a whole country. And there too, one must not forget justice, courage, and temperance. But interestingly, there's also a political prudence, by which St. Thomas means the prudence of the citizens. It's not just that the government needs a kind of prudence, the citizens also need a prudence because they have to be intelligent citizens. law, for St. Thomas, is an act of reason, is not basically the imposition of the will of the powerful on those who are subject to him. It's an act of reason, helping the citizens perceive the goodness of doing this and the badness of doing that. And law as an act of reason has to be received rationally. Citizens are not meant to have a blind obedience, but reading between the lines of what St. Thomas says about law and so on, they need to tell when some law is unjust, and then tell whether it should be obeyed to avoid disorder, or must be disobeyed because it commands what is evil. There might be some stupid law, and a groundswell of opinion might develop a contrary custom that abrogates it. And then if there is a good law, there might be particular strange circumstances where you need to set aside the letter of the law to achieve its basic purpose. The citizens need a kind of feel for when it's right to exercise epieikeia, equity, that virtue of disobeying a detailed law in an unusual situation. And today we might wonder whether there are other species of prudence that need to be developed and understood. What about running a multinational corporation, or a civil service department that has to make detailed regulations? People for whom no one has voted and who aren't entirely perhaps accountable for the excellence or confusion of their regulations. Maybe we need to do a lot of research developing and applying St. Thomas's basic ideas to the complexity of modern society. And always bear in mind the need for justice, courage and temperance. If you are running an office in some company, don't bully the people in your office. So we can see how demanding prudence is in its various species, what skills it needs, but also we can be struck by the moral beauty of prudence when it is really well exercised.